Hi, today I wanted to talk about yeast infections in dogs. Now, we asked some questions on Facebook and a few people came back to us, and really it's very common in the shop to be asked about this. So yeast infections often will be things like ear infections, itchy paws or something like that. And if you've got a dog that's prone to yeast infections, it's worth going to see the vet about it, definitely, without a doubt. But there are a few things that we found in the years of helping people with dog food that really do help with things like yeast infections. The first thing to do is actually reduce the amount of carbohydrates the dog's getting. So carbohydrates are things like rice, wheat, corn, sometimes labelled up as maize, stuff like that, that is very, very commonly in dog food, that if you've got a dog that's itching a lot, a dog that gets a lot of ear infections or something like that, it might be worth eradicating it or losing it, just taking it back a little bit, just to see whether it helps. You've got absolutely nothing to lose. There's loads of lower carbohydrate biscuits out there these days. There's loads and loads of very, very low carbohydrate raw out there. So it's nice and easy to do these days. So just have a look at that. So what do we mean? Every single biscuit has carbohydrates in it. It doesn't matter. This is at this stage, you need a carbohydrate. Otherwise, in a bag of dog food, you're going to end up with a powdery mess at the bottom. You have to scoop it out with a spoon or something like that. So have a look at the dog food. The best way to eradicate the carbohydrates is feed a grain-free. Then have a look at the amount of meat you're feeding. So it's really quite simple. If you're feeding a 50% meat dog food, then in theory some of it can be carbohydrates, the rest of it. Now, it doesn't mean it's a grain, but it can still have carbohydrates in it. So if you feed a 60% meat dog food, there's less space. 70% meat, there's only 30% space there to have carbohydrates in. So the higher meat content dog foods have less carbohydrates in them. They still will have some, guarantee it, they have some, but they're going to have less in there. So that might be something that's worth looking at if you're trying to eradicate issues with yeast infections, ear infections, scratching and stuff like that. If you're feeding raw, there are raw out there that have grains in them, but there's not many. So the main source of carbohydrates are going to be things like butternut squash, stuff like that. So it's worth eradicating that out of the diet. So you could feed what's known as prey model. By prey model, we mean feeding just meat with bone, with organ in there as well. And that's what's known as prey model. So you could look at feeding something like that, and we've had a huge amount of success with people that feed raw that maybe have a little bit of scratching, maybe still prone to ear infections or something like that. Going over to our meat-based diet, a more prey model type diet, that has really helped with getting rid of ear infections, or at the very least making them less common. So that's well worth looking at. There's other bits you can do as well. Coconut oil is very, very good. Apple cider vinegar, I forgot what it's called then. Apple cider vinegar is very good as well. Both of them can be used topically, so putting on the skin, just a little bit on the skin, and they can also both be used a little bit added to the food as well. But again, back to what we said before, make sure you consult a vet. Make sure you speak to a vet, especially if you're getting lots and lots of ear infections, lots and lots of scratching, because there could be something underlying that really does need to be looked at. But you can go a long way to helping with the diet, and all of those changes I suggested there, especially if it's done for a short period of time, you're not going to do any harm to a healthy dog. Just switching up the diet and seeing whether it makes a difference can really, really help. And it just means you can kind of try and sort it out, and try and just ease it. It can be very, very uncomfortable for dogs scratching all the time, ear infection and things like that. Not to mention it can be very, very expensive. So it's definitely worth looking at. If you want a little bit more in-depth information or something specific to your dog, obviously just come and see us or give us a call or message us, leave some comments and stuff like that, and we'll get in contact. That's what we're here to do. We're here to help. So do get in contact. And if you want any questions answered, then just leave a comment or get into contact, or even make a video, or just get back to you directly. Thanks, bye.